Welcome to The Unspoken Truth. I'm your host, Rob Russ.
And I'm Ed Anderson.
Today on the show, we're going to talk about the naughty North Koreans firing intercontinental ballistic missiles. They seem to be aimed at Japan, although they don't land in Japan. Thank heavens for that. It's a pretty scary thing that's actually going on. No countries around North Korea have been threatened, but the missile went really high and it flew for quite a long time, which is something that we haven't seen before. So let's get started. Well, Ed, let me kick off by saying that the North Koreans are at it again. There's been a bit of a lull in the missile launching battle, I suppose. One really interesting thing, I'll show you a video in a sec of this missile. These Chinese missiles is what they actually are. You know, this is not a North Korean missile. This is a Chinese ICBM test. And all of the data, make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, all of the data that comes from these missile systems goes to China, and it goes to Iran, and it probably goes to Russia as well, because it's a well-known fact that engineers from those countries have helped the North Koreans build these missile systems. This is not an indigenous missile capability that they actually have. And that is, the reason that you know that is because when you look at the front of the missile, the top of it, see how it's got like a black and white checker mark on it? Do you know why they have that on it?
No.
It's measuring, right? It's just measuring. So
it's something to do with measurement. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So as soon as they, when you look at operational weapon systems, they don't have stuff like that on them, do they? It's just like a green missile. And the reason it's a green missile is because it's camouflaged. You don't want it to be seen. Although the missile lives inside the canister, the reason that it has that on it is because they're measuring every single thing as it comes out. All the telemetry on the missile will give the North Korean engineers what they need to tweak it and to test and adjust it. And they might be tweaking and testing and adjusting as they go. I doubt it, but it is something that it seems actually really primitive. When you look at the American moonshot program, they would put a couple of people on the top of an intercontinental ballistic missile. And this kind of reminds me of that. And when you see the footage of this thing taking off, I'll show it to you in one sec. When you see the footage of it taking off into space, you'll see what I mean. Because when you compare this to something like a SpaceX missile launch, those North Korean engineers must watch those Elon Musk videos and go, oh my God, this is like our dream. But when you see this, you can see that it's like really super old school technology. So let me play that video for us, and you will see North Koreans have got a bit of a knack of getting these videos right. So let's have a look. I'll turn the sound off because I don't like the North Korean propaganda music. It's a bit annoying. So pop open the nose cone, raise it up, and off it goes. It's old school tech, I tell you. Actually looks a little bit like a Satan II missile. So they're filming it from a drone like that. The whole point of them filming that is to make sure that the missile's coming out of the canister correctly and it's firing correctly and all the telemetry that comes out of it. And watch it, we see a couple of stages. There's one of the stages that falls away, and that's kind of the end of the video. That's all you see. That's all you're getting. This is on the back of a bunch of protests that happened last month in North Korea, where they're celebrating the armistice and they're saying that this is a day of rage, or I don't know, some crazy North Korean propaganda where they get half the population of Pyongyang into a so-called football stadium to protest about something. It's a really,
the Day of Rage?
Yeah, the Day of Rage. Yeah, it's a really strange society. And the North Koreans were really pissed off earlier in the week because apparently there was some surveillance aircraft encroaching into their airspace and whatnot. And here we are with a missile launch. I mentioned that it went near Japan. Apparently it went up to 6,000 kilometers above the atmosphere. So this really, really super high arc and this super high trajectory coming down. And that's the reason, why would they do such a high trajectory like that? When you think about it, it looks like a big parabola, or, the upside down bell curve like that. So when you look at something like that, you think, well, that's because their mobile missile launches are the most difficult thing to actually destroy. But at all times, we know where their mobile missile launches are, right? The satellite's sitting right over the top of North Korea right now. We can detect every single missile launch that happens, and we can intercept these things. There's warships left and right of the peninsula there, not all the time, but they have SM-6 and SM-3 capability, which can engage these missiles in the ascent phase, in the cruise phase, and also in the terminal phase. We have Patriot systems that are designed to take these things out in South Korea as well. So if they fire their nukes and they have this arc that comes like this, it's meant for a short-range strike. That's what they're testing. And when you look at the map here, you can see Japan to the right of the map, and you can see the little pins there on the Google Map pins. That's actually where it landed. So there's an island just to the west of Japan, and it landed I think it was like 200 kilometers to the west of that, 250 kilometers to the west of that. So if you look at that distance, what could they strike from that distance? So the missile went up to 6,000 kilometers into the atmosphere, and it flew for an hour or whatever it was, and it came back down and it traveled that distance. Where else in the radius on the map can you pull that around? So that kind of gives you some idea of where this strike can actually happen. So, when
it looks like they can get pretty much anywhere in Japan if they wanted to, right?
Well, strictly speaking, if they can get outside of the Earth's atmosphere, which is what an intercontinental, ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile is, they can strike anywhere. They can strike anywhere on planet Earth. And, can they hit the mainland United States? There's been a couple of times where they've fired these missiles and they've flown over the top of Japan and they've landed in the ocean on the eastern side of Japan, on the right-hand side of the map there. But when I look at this thing and I think, well, why would they fire a missile at Japan anyway? Like, what? It just...
Well, Japan
just happens to be in the way. So...
Well, yeah, it's a good target, right? It's right there, and
we're gonna fire at something, man.
Yeah,
I'm not just going out in the range and just shooting blindly. I gotta aim at something.
Yeah, better than Guam. We don't want to send it to Guam. That's
well, if I grab my finger and my thumb and I turn it around on the map, is it close enough to get to Guam? Well, not quite. But Guam is the unsinkable aircraft carrier, which will be destroyed on the first day of the war, and whether that's a war with Korea or a war with China, that will be sunk. That aircraft carrier will be sunk.
Wow.
And it's just an unfortunate reality. They'll just rain down ballistic missiles from space to stop it, and no amount of anti-ballistic missile systems is going to prevent that from happening.
Well, I got questions for you, but I'll save it for after your report.
No, fine. No, do it here. Come on.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering how much of this is for show and how much of this is for practical purposes. I mean,
well, the last missile launch the North Koreans had was apparently a spy satellite, and the South Koreans recovered it, and they said, "This is not a spy satellite. This is just garbage. It was never going to work." Pretty much is what they said. So I think a lot of it has got to do with testing. A lot of it's got to do with telemetry and gathering the data to refine what it is that they've got. But I think it's a test by proxy. It's a test of the Iranian systems and a test of the existing Chinese systems. Okay. Because where do you think they get the trucks from to put these missiles on? Well, it comes from China. Well, where do they get all the materials? It all comes from China. And the Chinese are like, yeah, you can test the missile, so long as you share the information with us.
But where did we get this footage?
North Korea. So
okay. So they wanted us to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely did.
It probably has just as much value as a PR tool as an actual military tool, right?
Surprisingly, the North Koreans are, they're surprisingly transparent. They want us to know their capability.
They want to be relevant. Listen, the way I look at it is they have kind of been out of the headlines for a while. Ukraine and Russia have been taking up all the front line,
the oxygen in the room,
right? Yeah. So they're probably feeling a little neglected. Hey, we're still here, So I can see them doing this for PR purposes, and I kind of don't blame them for that. If you want to stay relevant, if you want to be taken seriously, this is what I would do.
I think this is happening anyway. It's just part of the protocol that they have, and they've got a calendar of events, and what are we going to do? We're going to test these missiles. We're going to do this. That's every military in the world has that calendar of events. But North Korea is such a poor country, and they can't really exercise with anybody else. They don't even go and exercise with the Chinese. They do a little bit of stuff with the Russians and the Chinese, but it's not to the scale of things that we actually do. And when I look at this and I think, well, what would potentially happen? What would be the potential outcome of something like this? And do the intelligence agencies look at this and go, oh man, this is a big threat? Or is it just more of the same? Well, one thing that we've seen with this missile launch today is it's unprecedented in its altitude. So we've never seen a missile go that high before. And when you think about what that would look like on a map and the parabola that it's actually flying, then you can get some idea of what it is that they're trying to do. So would they use these ICBM missiles to strike South Korea? Maybe if the parabola looks like that, they launch from the top of the country in North Korea, and can they hit the very bottom of it? And, would they put a nuke in it? Maybe. Would they just put a conventional weapon in it? Maybe. But the point is, we can see their capabilities, and now it opens the door to a whole range of questions that we've got about that. And then when you think the Chinese have got these mobile missile launchers as well, how many of them have they got? Where are they? What's the disposition? How would they employ them? What would it all be about? And these, in actual fact, are the biggest threat in a nuclear war. Is not because we know where the missile silos are that you have in the ground, so they're easy to destroy, and we know what we need to destroy them because we can see them from space. We know where your ships are. If you've got shipboard missiles, we don't know where your subs are, and the North Koreans don't have a submarine capability anyway to launch a nuke like this because they haven't mastered that technology. But so the only thing that's left as a real threat to us is this mobile missile technology. So if we end up in a conflict with them, we're going to be on the receiving end of something. We're not just going to stamp it out in the first, 24 hours of the war. That's just simply not going to happen.
Well, I know that you have warned several times before that North Korea has to be considered, has to be given more respect that it's been getting, in the sense that we have to take these guys seriously. And I think you've warned that we're not taking them seriously enough as the next potential big instigator of war in the world, right?
Well, that's the problem, right? Is we do these exercises and we surround the Korean Peninsula with aircraft carrier battle groups, and we send our Air Force to South Korea to exercise with them. And it's not just the United States and Australia, it's like a number of countries that go and do that. And we do these exercises, and the North Koreans have looked at the way that we wage war and how we create buildups. And there's no real staging platform in South Korea. So that's the scary thing, is that every time that we approach the Korean Peninsula with our navies and we do exercises and we're doing all these things, the North Koreans are on a hair trigger because they don't know if this is the time where we're going to invade them and take down the regime, or it's just another exercise. And so when that happens, it becomes very provocative. And the last time that he said, I'm going to turn the Pacific Ocean into an ocean of fire, and he's all this rhetoric coming out because he doesn't know if the carriers that are coming there at him are actually going to try and destroy his regime. And that's simply because there's no way for the militaries to have a massive build-up like they did in Kuwait, for instance, or like they did in Pakistan before they went into Afghanistan. Yeah, so, the staging...
So you're saying there's no real staging area?
No.
Okay, got it.
Correct. Well, there is. There's the air bases that are there, the army bases and the ports and whatnot. But typically, if there's going to be a conflict, there's going to be a large build-up for a couple of months before that actually happens. And because of the geography and the way that it works, there's no way for that to be staged. So the North Koreans are constantly on a hair trigger. And to your point, that's why I'm constantly saying that you've got to watch these guys, because you just never know what's going to happen. And what would be their methodology? Well, the scary part is when you look at the geography of the map, Seoul is only 20-something kilometers away from the North Korean border. It's very close. And there's 1 million troops facing off against each other in that part of the world, and all of the artillery. Seoul would be destroyed in the first couple of hours of the war with artillery and missile strikes. And then the North Korean infantry would storm across the border, and oh my God, this would be on a scale that you couldn't possibly imagine. It'll make Ukraine look like a kindergarten picnic, really, when you think about it.
Have you ever been to the DMZ there in...
No, it's one country in Asia that I've never been to. I never went to Korea,
I've been
unfortunately. There. Yeah. You've been there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was living in Japan, I used to go to Korea pretty often to renew my visa and stuff. Right? So one of the times when I was in Seoul, that's where I would go, one of the other foreigners at the hostel I was staying in said, "Hey, you want to go up to the DMZ?" I said,
"Oh, you went there?"
Yeah. I said, "Sure, let's go." So we got a taxi, and we got up to the point where they turned us back, but we got pretty close. We got to the gate. We got to the gate where the military, and they turned us back. So I didn't really see the DMZ. I was within.
It's not that famous place with the blue buildings and the soldiers.
I didn't see that.
Tourist. Is that it? Is that where you mean?
No, we didn't get into that. But no, it was an odd day, and I don't think we didn't really know what we were doing, right? But it was just kind of cool to know that you're like within a mile or so of a very important, demarcation line. And that was and it still is a very important, location, right? So there are parts of the world that are more significant than others. And that little stretch there is a very significant, piece of real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the danger of this conflict spilling over in North Korea, if there's this is one of the classic cases of a miscalculations where the North Koreans are like, they're going to attack us. And we're like, we're not attacking you, we're over here. But they're going to attack us. And then they suddenly attack and they're like, hey, what are you doing? And then it just escalates. So it ends up in a tit for tat. I don't think it ends up in a tit for tat scenario. The North Koreans launch first and then everybody else goes, what are you doing? And then strikes back. And then they go, see, they're attacking us. Now launch everything. And then it all gets launched. And the Chinese are going, oh my God, this is right at our border. Should we go for Taiwan? Could we go for Taiwan? Or maybe that's actually where it all comes to a head. That's why this is so dangerous with this war in Ukraine as well. This prolonged conflict of drawing us in, pulling all of our resources, our treasure, and all of our attention to something like this. And you take your eye off this ball over here. Very, very serious. And we're on the precipice with Iran as well. Iran already has this ballistic missile capability. They have the ability to mount the warhead on the end of the missiles that they've got. They've got great missile technology that's been used against us pretty extensively, and it's very accurate. So if they're able to get the uranium and the plutonium that they need onto the weapon systems that they've already built and mounted on the end of that, they've said Israel is a one-bomb country and we're going to wipe them out. Like, man, this is crazy. I wonder where we'll be in 2030, Ed. Where's it all leading to? I just don't know.
I'll be on some beach, in some island in the South Pacific.
Maybe not in the nuclear wasteland of the South Pacific.
No, I'll be on the Bikini Island chain.
I'm thinking maybe in the Andes somewhere in South America, in Argentina or some shit like that. I don't know.
Well, I don't speak Spanish. I don't speak Mayan.
We'll have to figure it out as we go.
That's right. No, I'm thinking South Pacific somewhere, some remote island. We'll do our version of Castaway, on a Castaway plus. We'll have a couple of knives and a tent, and hey, look, if Tom Hanks can do it, I can do it.
There it is. I think that's a good spot to close it out. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Let us know what you think. We'd love to get your comments and your feedback down below. Let us know and we'll get back to you there. All right, we've got another video like this one coming up right here.